It's that time again to talk about everyone's favorite series about training ducks to compete in races that starts with a D and ends with Uck Life, Duck Life. So I know it's kind of been like 2.5 years since I last reviewed a Duck Life game. Yeah, sorry about that. But now, I think I'm finally ready to jump back in and take a look at the third installment in the series, Duck Life 3 Evolution. But first, it's been a while, so let's recap real quick. Duck Life 1. Pretty good. It laid the groundwork for the series very well and was a fun little game in its own right. Duck Life 2 World Champion had some nice improvements, but ultimately felt too similar to the first one. And it also had a level editor that literally didn't work. So instead of repeating the same game once again with a few small changes, this time around, Wix Games decided to add a gimmick. I imagine they were trying to come up with something new to make this game stand out, and then someone said, what if Pokémon? And so it was. Yes, this was the game that kickstarted Duck Life's tendency to reappropriate ideas from Pokémon, with this game's victim being, obviously, the evolution mechanic. Mix this with the 6 duck party system from 4 and the battling from, well, battle, and this would literally just be Pokémon, but with a much more tolerable fan base. Anyway, so yeah, the big thing with Duck Life 3 is that the ducks evolve. You know, like the Pokemans. And the whole Pokemon comparison was a pretty big part of how this game was advertised. This website's description says, this game will provide you the opportunity to meet Pokemon. So if you're a fan of him, you should play this game. Okay, so apparently Pokemon is just one guy now. Cool. Duck Life 3 Evolution was released on May 16th, 2011. Yes, I actually found a definitive release date this time. Thanks, Wayback Machine. Side note, I also found Duck Life 2's actual release date, July 13th, 2010, from a post on Wix Games' Facebook this July about how it's the game's 11th anniversary. I added this info to the Duck Life wiki, including the sources, but it's probably just gonna get vandalized again. This is one of the messiest wikis I've ever seen. Anyway, I don't know what else to say here, so let's just start up the game and jump right into it. The story this time is shown through a newspaper headline telling us about a farmer who created some definitely 100% legal and ethical genetically modified ducks that can be bred to excel in certain skills. I've noticed that the opening quote-unquote cutscenes and stories in these games have been getting shorter and shorter each time. In 1, you have the whole story about your farm getting destroyed by a tornado, in 2, your duck talks to another duck about wanting to win a crown, and in 3, they're just like, hey, this guy made some sick genetically enhanced ducks, pick one. Much like in Pokemon, when you start the game, you're immediately given a choice. There are 4 eggs to choose from, and each of them evolve into a different duck, specializing in each of the 4 skills. In case you're unfamiliar, the Duck Life series consists of playing training minigames to level up your duck at different skills, and then entering it into races where how fast they perform each skill is based on their level. In this game, each duck type has a stat bonus for each of the skills, shown as a letter grade when you hover over their egg. A and A+ add levels to the skill, B leaves it unaffected, and C subtracts levels from the skill. All of the ducks look the same in their first evolution stage, the classic yellow duck we all know and love, but even in that form, they're still affected by their stat bonuses. The flying and swimming type ducks are insanely good at their namesake skill, but fairly weak at the others, while the athletic and strength types are a bit more balanced. Unlike in Pokemon, evolution doesn't happen when you reach a specific level, or when you hold your system upside down while standing next to a funny looking rock or whatever. It happens after you win all the races in each league. Duck Life 3 Retribution is split into 3 leagues: the Amateur League, taking place on a familiar generic farm, the Advanced League, taking place in London, and the Professional League, taking place on Easter Island. The level cap for each skill starts at 50 in the beginner league, but increases by 50 with each consecutive league. And I think this is a much better way to handle it than buying level upgrades in Duck Life 2. And here's the best part, the training minigames are actually different between the 3 leagues. The training games in the Amateur League play mostly the same as they did in Duck Life 2, but there are a few small changes. In running training, the name of the game is still jumping over obstacles, of which there are a few new ones. There's a tennis ball that bounces high that you have to run under, and sometimes the other balls can now be thrown in from up high and bounce a little. Flying training still has the cliffs to dodge, and it also adds these purple coins that increase your duck's speed when collected, allowing you to fly for longer. Swimming training is still the best one, and it has exactly 1 new obstacle: another duck. Look, they're kissing. Climbing training is exactly the same as far as I can tell, but I guess here would be a good place to mention that all the training games now display how fast you're going in the top left corner. So far, the game feels very similar to the first 2 entries, but after you win every race in the Amateur League, your duck proclaims, OMG, I'm evolving, and will reach its 2nd stage of evolution, ranging from, yeah, that's just a bird, to what the fuck? And the Advanced League will be unlocked. Apart from the new London scenery, the main difference in advanced running training is the elevation changes. stages. All the same obstacles are here, but the ground level is constantly changing instead of just being flat, which definitely makes it a lot more challenging. In advanced flying training, well, first of all, you get shot out of a cannon, so that's fun, but more importantly, the obstacles are now inverted. Instead of a warning sign telling you where cliffs will appear, you get an arrow showing you where to be so you can safely fly through each oddly shaped building. Swimming training still plays the same, but there are some different obstacles to fit better with the location. And advanced climbing training now has you jumping between two buildings, avoiding satellite dishes and balconies. I really like how the game eases you in by starting off feeling very similar to the first two games, but once you evolve, it's all new and different. The changes aren't huge so far, but they're just enough to prevent training from becoming too stale. After winning all the races in London, your duck once again evolves to reach its final asterisk form, and you enter the Professional League. Professional running training completely ditches the rolling obstacles and instead has you running super fast and jumping over stationary hills, boulders, and moai statues. Flying training mixes together the obstacles from both of the previous leagues, which just makes perfect sense. I approve. Climbing training has you climbing up a volcano trying to escape rising lava, and even adds the ability to control your climbing speed using the up and down arrow keys. Although the lava is pretty much just for show, since I've clearly touched it several times and it didn't kill me until I went off screen like normal. So this is effectively just amateur climbing training, but you can control your speed. I think it's safe to say that climbing training got the shortest end of the stick in this game. On the contrary, did you notice I switched up the order here? Well, that's because professional swimming training is very special. It's the only skill where it's actually a completely different minigame instead of just building off the previous league's games. Your duck automatically swims forward through an underwater cavern, and you have to try to last as long as possible without touching the walls. Hold the spacebar or up arrow key to swim upwards and release it to drop downwards. Interestingly, this is actually based on a previous game that Wix Games made, simply titled Cave Swimming. This game plays identically to the training minigame, just with some extra modes and features. So yeah, this is technically recycled content, but hey, it works perfectly as a Duck Life training game, and I really appreciate its inclusion. And that's all of Duck Life 3's training minigames. I think they were handled amazingly in this game. They start off familiar, but gradually become more unique as you progress through the leagues, preventing training from ever becoming too monotonous. The main screen features the returning seed and super seed dispensers from Duck Life 2, functioning exactly the same as they did in that game. Also, there are now achievements to get. There are only 10 of them, they don't reward you with anything, and most are just acquired through normal gameplay, but there are some fun ones like disqualifying an opponent in a race, or flying backwards in flying training. Unfortunately, you can't change your duck's color with paints or give it hats anymore, which is a shame, but I kinda understand why they were cut. It would be difficult to have customization options with all the different evolution forms. In fact, the duck shop is entirely gone this time. The only thing you can use coins on are the seed dispensers, which means that after you reach the max energy level, coins are entirely superfluous. Coins are no longer given out as prize money for races, the only way to get them is by collecting them in the training minigames. But since you can only spend them on seeds in this game, I think that's completely reasonable. With that out of the way, let's finally get into the actual races. Each league has 2 sets, the qualifiers and finals, with 3 races each. As is tradition, there is absolutely no player input during the races. It all comes down to your duck's skill levels acquired from training, along with their evolution stat bonuses. The races themselves are about what you'd expect. The first 2 races in a set are basically smaller chunks of the course to test certain skills, and the final one is the full thing. I guess there are a few more interesting set pieces compared to the first 2 games, but it's mostly just the same sort of deal. It is still really satisfying to watch your duck absolutely destroy the competition, even more so this time with the evolution bonuses. And with some of the ducks, the way the stat bonuses are distributed can actually make the races be pretty close, even if you're at max level. You'll still win every time at max level, obviously, but your duck does kind of fall behind until they get to the part that they're good at. Overall, the races are a bit more interesting to watch due to the game's gimmicks, but they're nothing really too special. That is excluding the last one, but we'll get to that later. Duck Life 3 Revolution's visuals are pretty much the embodiment of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that's absolutely fine by me. The simplistic trademark Duck Life style is here in full force, and it's still very appealing and nostalgic. Some of the evolved ducks designs, though, do look a little, what's the word? Uncanny? Especially the fact that all of them have the same face, it's only the body that changes. Pretty awkward looking, but that's definitely what they were going for. Genetically modified ducks were outlawed for a reason starting with Duck Life 4. I really appreciate the attention to detail they put into all the different duck types Life's animations. Like how the fully evolved athletic and strength ducks eat seeds with their hands, which is horrifying and I love it. Duck Life 3's music is pretty great as far as Duck Life soundtracks go. The London theme and the Champion Duck's Lair are particular standouts, but the entire soundtrack is really nice. I love the theme for the Beginner League, especially how it incorporates the main themes from both Duck Life 1 and 2. This really reinforces the idea that Duck Life 3's Beginner League is basically the ultimate realized form of the first two Duck Life games. And I'm happy to report that the general bugginess and lack of polish of the first two games is quite a bit less prevalent this time around. There are still a few bugs, like some flying animations not playing properly, but it is definitely a lot more stable than the earlier games. After winning all the races in the professional league, an otherworldly portal suddenly appears on Easter Island. I will never forget the unintentional comedy gold that is this screen. You see the portal, you click on it, you're told your duck is evolving one last time, and then... that sound effect, combined with seeing that thing for the first time, and the words, "You are now a supreme duck," is just perfection. The portal takes us to the Champion Duck's Lair, known for its bangin' music and its background, which looks like what would come up if you search for images on Google Images. Let's finally enter the final race of finality. This is the Champion Duck. He will not lose easily. Watch out for his army of Domo-kun. Wait, what? Okay, sure. We're doing this now. Yeah, Domo-kun, remember that thing? He's just in this game. For no reason at all, as an obstacle that you have to shoot during the final race. They could have picked literally anything else to be the obstacles, but they went with Domo-kun. I love that. In all seriousness, I really do appreciate that they actually give you something to do during the final race. And if you don't shoot the domos in time, they'll slow down your ducks, so it is really important to get them all. Apart from that though, the final race is a bit anticlimactic. It's a little on the short side, and really the only thing that makes it memorable at all is the domos. The music is really good though. When you win the final race, you're rewarded with a throne room, an arcade, and 500,000 coins that you can't use. The arcade contains reskinned versions of the professional league training minigames where you can try to get high scores. It's pretty funny how obvious it is that they just painted over the obstacles to make them all white. You can still clearly see the silhouettes of the moais in running and flying training. There's also Domo-kun Shootout, where you have to shoot as many domos as you can within 30 seconds. I just love the fact that this is in a Duck Life game. In the throne room, we can look at our ducks, and even have the option to choose one of the eggs we didn't select at the start and begin a new playthrough. And one of the achievements is beat the game with all 4 duck types. So technically, if you want to 100% the game, you have to play through it 4 times. And surprisingly, there is actually a reward for doing this. Each time you beat the game with a new duck, that duck's final evolution form is unlocked to be playable in the high score training games in the arcade. And if you do all 4, you'll unlock the ability to play as the Supreme Duck, who is usually only there for the final race. So that's really cool, but is it really worth playing through the game 4 times to get? No, not really. The game took me roughly 1 hour to finish with 1 duck while reaching the max level of 150 on every skill. So that's about 4 hours in total if you're going for 100%. It's a pretty good length. There's definitely more content in Duck Life 3 than its predecessors, but playing it 4 times is probably not worth it for what you get. Still, the finale and completion rewards are definitely the best they've been in the series so far. And that's about everything I have to say about Duck Life 3 Evolution. Overall, a very solid entry in the Duck Life series. Wix Games made some really smart changes and improvements to the Duck Life formula, which elevated the game to a higher level than ever before. The league system with different training minigames as you progress was a great idea, and just makes the game more interesting to play through in the long run compared to the first 2. While on the surface the evolution mechanic seems kinda gimmicky and weird, I think it adds a lot of much needed variety to the Duck Life formula, despite being more than a little unoriginal. The second game kinda just felt like the first one again, but 3 actually mixed it up, and I'm really glad it did. This game truly was an evolution for the Duck Life series. God, cut that out. And up to this point, Duck Life 3 is my favorite Duck Life game, but it won't hold that title for long, as the very next game is, in my opinion, the absolute peak of the series. But that's for another time, and there's actually one more thing to talk about regarding the first 3 games. On May 11th, 2015, Wix Games officially announced that Duck Life 1, 2, and 3 would be re-released in the form of Duck Life Retro Pack. Duck Life Retro Pack, as the title implies, is a collection of the first 3 Duck Life games remade for mobile devices and Steam. As we'll soon see, it seems to have been designed with mobile in mind first, but I'll be playing the Steam version since it's much easier to record footage of. The first thing you'll notice is that the games are in widescreen now, and that is literally the one and only improvement. That's right, get ready folks, it's time to complain way too much about the silly duck baby game. Alright, so in all the games, the duck doesn't follow your mouse cursor anymore. Off to a great start. Anything that you needed to mouse over something to see in the original games? Gone. They just forgot to make it work, I guess. In Duck Life 2, it's missing the love letter. Good riddance. And the cheats are missing too, which is pretty lame. The ducks now move a lot slower in the races, even at max level, which makes some of the longer ones really tedious to sit through. Alright, now the big one. Controls. Again, Retro Pack was originally designed for touch controls on mobile, so what did they do for the Steam release? Well, they restored the original keyboard controls for swimming and climbing training, but not for running and flying training. You have to click the mouse to jump in running training and drag the mouse up and down to move in flying training. Why? There is literally no reason for it to be like this. Why didn't they also bring back the keyboard controls for running and flying? The fact that they didn't go in and restore the original controls entirely feels super lazy. I mean, the controls aren't technically awful, but playing something that was clearly designed to be controlled with a touch screen using a mouse just doesn't feel right. Also, the training minigames in general just look and feel so off. It's hard to describe, but it just feels actively worse than the originals. Like, compare how the duck jumps and dives in swimming training in the originals to how they do in Retro Pack. See the issue? The animations and movement play way too fast, and it doesn't have the same satisfying flow of the originals. Don't you love how you can barely play flying training for 5 seconds without immediately dropping out of the sky? Yeah, so for some bizarre reason, they increased the energy level cap from 50 to 150. That makes every game have a really tedious start, as you just won't be able to get enough energy to finish any races. You almost have to grind for coins in the training games to be able to afford seeds. Speaking of seeds, they totally nerfed the skill seeds in Duck Life 1. They don't level up your skills anymore, only the energy, which I mean, yes, is a lot more balanced, but come on, that's no fun. The only new content in Retro Pack are these challenges you can find on the game select screen. Each one tasks you with reaching a certain score on a different training minigame in one of the games. I mean, it's something? No, it's not. It's literally just the same training games, but it ends when you get to a target score. Wow. Well, at the very least, they didn't redo the game's graphics and music and make them worse. Cough, cough. In summary, Duck Life Retro Pack is, how do I put this delicately, kinda terrible? Like, wow. They completely screwed this up. So many things just feel off and not as good as the originals. It is only $2, but honestly, Retro Pack on Steam just isn't worth it. You can easily play the original 3 games on Flashpoint for free with way better controls, no missing features, and just better game feel overall. Just make sure you're playing the Flash versions, not the HTML5 versions, because the HTML versions are based on the Retro Pack versions, meaning they also have the mouse controls. Why? And these are the only versions that are playable in browsers now, so they're going to be the most widely played. Kids today are going to grow up playing inferior versions of Duck Life. I know, right? It's such a major issue! And these versions have even more problems, most noticeably the music just straight up not working sometimes. How did they manage to make the already bad Retro Pack Steam versions even worse? Although the mobile version of Retro Pack is actually kind of fine. Still not perfect, but it feels a lot more natural here. It really seems like they designed Retro Pack for mobile first and foremost, and then just shoddily ported it to Steam in like 5 minutes. Huh, well, that's kind of a downer note to end this video on. I almost need to remind myself that Duck Life 3 is actually a pretty good game, and definitely worth checking out on Flashpoint if you haven't already. It was definitely the change that the Duck Life series needed at the time, and it'll only go even farther in the next installment. And with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in 2025 for my Duck Life 4 review.